Hold on, hold on a second. All right, it's working. Okay, you know this Jussie Smollett story. I just looked up a few facts about it because I don't know that much about it. Um, I guess I didn't really catch it when it allegedly had happened, or it, whatever it was, did happen a few weeks ago. But recently, I did. And yeah, I think it's terrible and it's a crime. And it should be considered a hate crime, except for I don't really think the hate crime laws, or I don't know that they're so great. But, you know, there should be a law, an extra violation, besides the fraud of it and the false police report, because it is inciting of civil prejudices. It reminds me of when there was, well, there's been a lot of women that did this, but there were two famous cases. One famous case where a woman killed her own kids, I think it was. This might have been 15 years ago or longer, and said it was a black man. And there's a lot of that is, you know, and it's playing on people's prejudices in a knowing way and inflaming them. Now, one thing, I don't believe that this kind of stuff, you know, and regardless of some of the details TMZ said, we'll find out, you know, because TMZ could have further exaggerated stuff, who knows. But just if that attack was orchestrated, there's an extra crime beyond the false police report, as far as I'm concerned. As a matter of fact, I think it's the perfect example of where you would have a category of a kind of fraud that is hate crime wouldn't even be the right word, but it's inciting people's prejudices. Now, the people are responsible for having their own prejudices, but when you play and inflame them, I don't consider that. That's more yelling fire in the crowded theater than it is just ordinary free speech. It was done to create this reaction. Now, I don't think that the reaction is done to inflame society. That's a result of it. But it's usually going to be more self-serving. Like they were going to fire him or something. He did for his own career. He thought it would be good for him to be a victim of this, or make him a hero. Or even if in his head he thought this will help the country, you know that, you know, MAGA's wrong or whatever, it would still be just that's what he'd be telling himself. And really, it's because, you know, and I'll be the center of it. And, you know, I'm an actor, one the center of attention. Of course, I don't know that we know that it's false yet, but I'm just saying, I figured I'd say something about it. It's the kind of thing that people say, oh, well, you should say something about it. Say something about it. Why don't you say something about it? And it's because, like, well, I don't see my channel as the saying something about everything, you know, channel. And, you know, there's a stochastic element to what I talk about or when I talk about it or why. But fair enough, people might want to know, what do I think about this terrible thing from the left? I think it's terrible. It should be a law and order matter. He should spend time in jail, even if it's just for the false, if the only law is that they can get him on is a false criminal report kind of thing. And for that matter, the two guys that did it. If that's all they can get him on, it should be the maximum. He should get fired. It should totally not be tolerated by anybody. It should be just as bad as being a racist, because it is being a racist. And it's just, it's automatically self-serving no matter what he thought he was doing. And, you know, it's a Roger Stone, Karl Rove. Like Karl Rove bugged the office of his own candidate that he was working for just to accuse it on the other guy, that kind of thing. And when we do find these cases of the false flag style and the agent provocateur, we need to crack down on a heart, because it does happen. It only takes a little bit because it's a reagent that starts a chain reaction, and sometimes it works. Now, it can't just make the whole situation. No, the situation's there, and it spark, spark, spark. So, yeah, that's my view on that. I never watched that show. What an idiot. Even if he was going to get fired off his show, it's like, oh, you just get 10 years or whatever. I don't know how long that show's been around. 3, whatever, 1 year. It doesn't matter. You get $1 million acting job on a popular show. Why don't you just, play on that? Why don't you just take what you got? If you never get another acting job, you're still going to have made 1,000,000 times more than most actors. So, or 10,000 times more, or whatever. So, yeah, no sympathy for that whatsoever. Now, as for the politicians tweeting about it, or even Trump said something about it, well, I mean, it's a news report. Of course, we give the benefit of the doubt. It's pretty rare somebody's orchestrated one of those. You shouldn't ignore 100 victims because 1 out of 100, or the 101st one, or ignore, let's make it even, ignore 99 because the 100th is some sort of crazy, probably a little bit bad judgment, mental issue thing, possibly. Yeah, 1 in 100 is like that. However, you can't just ignore it. Ignoring it is one of the worst things you could do for the fact that there are real crimes like that against left and right and every group. So, fuck that shit. All right. The other subject is Hardcase owns you. He has a new name now. I forget. Somebody in the comments could probably tell you. Is there any commenters? Probably not, just at a random time like this. But comment when this is over if you know what Hardcase's current channel name is. So Hardcase is an old YouTuber, and he was talking about the incel thing, and he got all personal and sort of, shared a lot. Not that you can believe that. Could be part act. I mean, the way Hardcase has turned out over the years, it's kind of like it could be kind of kidding on the square, like getting emotional about a thing that he really has no feelings about, like a psychopath. But he wants to, or deep down he does have it, and this is a way to have the feelings he really has in a fake way. You know what I mean? So that it's real. I don't know. I always liked Hardcase. I thought he was smart. He turned out seems to not be showing that so much. Used to be an atheist, he's like, whatever it is, I want to say Russian. Is it a Greek Orthodox church that the Russians have? Anyway, this super conservative, Jew-hating brand of Christianity they got. And I don't know, but I thought when I first saw Hardcase, he was like a working class hero philosopher type guy. Working construction, drinking a glass of wine, talking to the camera, being a little bit anarchistic in the just don't give a damn sense. Like, not anarchistic in the bring down the government way. This is just my impression. But he would, whatever, he would say something different. But anarchistic in the just don't give a damn. Doesn't really matter. Like, anarchistic in the sense that there already isn't a hierarchy. I know you guys all think that there is, and you dance a little kabuki dance, convincing yourself that it is, and hey, I see a pyramid of people, but the world isn't that way, and I'm out here. And it's funny he's talking about incel. He said something I agreed with and said years ago. It was before I left for here, when I was still in Hawaii. When the MGTOW, before MGTOW, I noticed there was a rise in these kind of, and it's where MGTOW came from, of, women are no good, you got to just forget about it, there is no solution to it. PUAs are just as bad, and even if it works, you don't get what you want. It's sort of a criticism and a pessimistic and kind of what I would think of as the tradition, like the idea of a lonely hearts club, but maybe of people that have given up on being lonely, but they're still lonely, it seemed like, but then they're trying to get over it or whatever. And there was a lot of hateful rhetoric in that. But I also saw, just turning over personal emotions that had to be processed, and, it can evolve, because the very idea of men going their own way, what a better idea that is. Um, just realizing that the whole sex pressure and marriage pressure and all that's kind of bullshit. And, and so what I noticed, there was a BBC documentary I'd seen back then. Again, must have been 6 years ago, 5 or 6. Anyway, sometime before I left Hawaii, which is about coming up 5 years, I guess. Um, the BBC, I think it was, could have been the CBC or something like this, but had done and there was male and female. And they were literally people that were involuntary celibate. Now, a lot of them were kind of geeky guys, and there were a couple geeky women. So, my kind of people, weird, but they got opinions and stuff. Now, what I found combined them, and to a certain degree also, but less so because the documentary, had more in-depth interviews than people making YouTube channels where you're trying to discern what's behind there, what's behind this message. But was that these are really picky people, right? They don't realize that the reason, ordinary people all get laid is because, as Hardcase was saying, it doesn't matter how ugly or anything. There's somebody out there. It doesn't even matter if you're shy or not that great at talking, and a lot of people would describe what I'm talking about is that, people go out and socialize, they drink, maybe if they're lonely, they drink an extra amount, maybe they have some beer goggles, maybe they get them on purpose, maybe they, whatever, people lower their standards. But I don't consider it lowering their standards, because my experience was, born in '67, and as far as porn, there was no porn around. You had to find your uncle's, Playboys or something. And by around my teen years, I realized that those Playboy girls, and you heard they're airbrushed, and you see a few real naked people. And like in my case, my dad was hippie and went to the nude beach, and you see a lot of naked people. I'm like, oh, this is what naked's about. But then somebody beautiful, comes up, and you're like, that's what an actual beautiful person looks like. And it's not the same, And it's kind of fake is the point, right? And so your standards can be up at a fake level, which isn't really healthy. And I don't mean unhealthy in that you can't have it. I mean unhealthy in that it's fake. Why your evolution has designed you to want the real thing. So there must be something culturally, skewing that. Right. And it's not necessarily the Playboy stereo. I mean, like, there were women in there, and they're not wanting the male stripper thing. Quite the opposite. Again, what Hardcase says, they want a more romantic or perfect person that understands them, and things like this, goals like this that are not entirely unachievable, but they definitely reduce your chances. And you should pretty much be really patient if that was your approach. Like, you should just go about your business and see if anything ever happens, would be the best plan of action, right? So that incel is kind of a voluntary celibacy, but they don't realize they're making voluntary decisions of, I have better things to do than go out to a bar. I have better things to do than find new hobbies that are co-ed. I happen to like hobbies that aren't co-ed or that are solitary hobbies. Don't spend the time changing what you do in your life or spending time on that pursuit. They voluntarily don't want to spend the time, and then they don't get the result. And he kind of talks about that because he talks about being a sex addict and stuff, and how, no, you're spending 24/7. You have to be, it's like anything that you do with that kind of obsession, you become good at. And, it does, he says he's not that handsome. Of course, men have a different kind of, there's a rugged, like that movie picture of his, no homo or anything, but he's also right. He doesn't have it necessarily conventional, but none of us really do. But that's kind of a funny thing. But now I'm getting into the details of how women, the spectrum of women attitudes on looks is definitely somewhat liberal. But men sort of have the same thing, and if you learn to be attracted to certain ideas and things, and there's a whole spectrum of the traditional looks that go in magazines or not, or what the stereotype role in a movie would be or not, where there's, you know, natural attractions and whatnot. And if your standards are picky, that's not necessarily bad, but you should be patient and maybe decide, oh, maybe it'll never happen. It's a 1 in a million thing. One of those people that'll be a 1 in a million. So a funny thing though about that is that he didn't talk about. I remember when I first watched him, and he made at least one video, but I thought more than one, about not having a girlfriend and not wanting to have a girlfriend at this time in his life. So before MGTOW was the thing, and kind of like, look, I'm just going my own way right now, which struck me as really wise. Now, maybe he turns out he was just saying that because it sounded good or something, but I've always been fooled by people that say things that sound good, because it's like, hey, if you say that and you know because it sounds good, then why not you be doing that? But we know the reasons as we grow older why it turns out that way. But again, I still don't know. I think he my impression would, I still want to go with that he was being sincere in that, and that the confusion he had later, a lot of it was maybe from having the 10 minutes of internet fame kind of thing, or something, just other things in his life, probably not the part of his life that I had seen, but that definitely got pretty intense. So that was definitely a part of it too, being on a reality TV show and the whole ponage and epic drama he was involved with Cap No Awesome. Um, and then later, like as far as having positive and negative things here, I mean, I'll just say later, I'll say two things that really bugged me about him and made me think like, okay, I just don't always have perfect judgment. But I still want to uphold my judgment, and I do think there's an essence there. He's obviously, for example, a smart person. It's just funny how smart people can get to these bizarre, like bigoted conclusions and stuff like that. So are they really that smart, or does it even matter if they're smart, or maybe it's a bad thing that they're smart if they have whatever emotional thing driving them in that way? But whatever, in another way, I don't think he's a, you know, I think it's fine people like him in the world. Don't mind at all. I don't think he's a direct danger, you know, and not really a group joiner. I mean, I almost feel like the biggest catastrophes we saw online with him was him playing with group joining, and he's better at being an individual. But anyway, so in spite of talking about, I don't have a girlfriend, I don't want him, I remember he trashed some other guy later because he had a girlfriend, and it was, I forget her name, a whole Mentam angle to it, as well as Cap No Awesome being her cousin, but not a. It's the most epic drama ever. Hardcase, Cap No Awesome, and Mentam. It was a very interesting intersection. Um, and then the other thing was, I said to him one time, something like, the only one that ever pwned you was Boring Dispatcher. I said this after Boring Dispatcher died. And Boring Dispatcher did pwn Hardcase. Hardcase already started to jump the shark, forgot the game. I don't remember if he went on the Boring Dispatcher being fat and stuff. But see, the Boring Dispatcher was great and epic. If you thought the internet was having a thick skin and, you know, and the original banter idea, like he was great. And he overshared. His YouTube fame got him a couple girlfriends, and he overshared. And right before he died, um, he was starting to enter into the whole philosophy and YouTube atheism thing, because he used to just do basically watch videos of, you know, things that were trending that day on YouTube, and at night while he's a dispatcher for a cabs. No, tow trucks, and he would dispatch in between, and people would try to hassle him, tell his boss, and his boss was like, "Fuck you, he's a great dispatcher. He could do whatever he wants." Some guys watch TV in between the calls, and so he's just kind of out there. I don't know. I really, of that whole genre that you had with Captain Awesome, never liked him. Uh, didn't dislike him as a person, but I mean, didn't like the show and the whole shtick and the Amazing Atheist. It's like, nah. But he really caught a kind of humble angle of it. And so I'm like, and then Hardcase was like, no, I pwned him to death. And I thought, wow, man, you're tiny. And you were so smart. But maybe I just had a misconception when you started. But I don't think so. I think you're still on a mission. Probably end up atheist again before the end, by the time you're my age. So, but anyway, it was definitely a really interesting thing and touching if you just gave in to the suspension of disbelief that he knows he's always going to be lonely because of his sex addiction made him unable to grow an emotional pair bond because it's just too easy to move on. And of course, a lot of people like that. If you just stop looking, then it comes to you. And I think it was true when he made those first videos that he wasn't really looking, and it's like too much of a hassle, or whatever his personal reasons were, not the right time of life in a very, conscious way, or maybe just too much hassle, or maybe he was trying but it didn't happen, or like didn't want to spend the time like I was saying, or whatever. But that's the attitude where it leads to it. And maybe he was telling the truth. I kind of thought he was, that after that period, and after Heaven Ocean Avani, maybe was her name, something like that, having the relationship with her after they broke up, maybe he went on a sex addiction thing because, it's like, I don't want to give up the regular sex or whatever. And if he's back now into the, well, whatever, I don't expect anything, people come along. I think that's probably the best way to actually find the kind of love partner that an incel wants. Whereas the best way to find someone to sleep with is going out and doing the activity, or used to be going out and doing the activities where you could run in and people were sort of out there in the game or whatever, and there was a high percentage relatively of people, as opposed to the grocery store, which is also whatever. Now I guess, I don't know, if you really just want quick sex, I guess there's apps for that, which in a way should really satisfy a lot of stuff, except for, as Hardcase, to give him credit, was pointing out that the incels don't want that. That's crushing to their soul. And they have these hate terms about thoughts, the thoughts and stuff like that over there kind of thing, and sluts, and they hate that, but partly it's just because of how it makes them feel crushed to think about or to have had experiences where they had that and it made them naturally, just hormonally or however, the brain, oh, this is going to be marriage and happiness, and it's the opposite. So, interesting videos. So that's that. And it's one comment with the message retracted. Great. Okay, message retracted. I don't know what to say, because you retracted your message. Okay. All right. Button. Do I press?